Mark, I'm happy to be here. Thanks. Yeah. It's not something you encounter every day. And people assume I have like a photographic memory or I'm a genius or something, and further from the truth, right? So I read a book about 10 years ago that chronicles memory athletes and these people, ordinary people who learn mental techniques through visualization, imagination, sort of unlocking the right side of their brain, because a lot of people associate memory with logic and structure and boring, just reading over and over. So we utilize the right side, um, and just learn how to memorize massive amounts of information. We're learning, like, when a memory champion competes, the US Memory Championship, we have different events like memorizing decks of cards, memorizing lists of numbers, memorizing names and faces like that. Um, and then the reigning, the person who survives all the tests is the champion. I think, usually like 60 to 100 people compete each year, depending on the year. But then it qualifies into the top 12. The top 12 get to go to the finals, the championship, and go through elimination style until one person is standing. 100%. So just to give you an idea, in the US, it's not as popular. We're into big and, sports and, all this grand stuff. But in China, for example, I just got back from China a couple months ago and was on their Super Brain show, which is an American, most people haven't heard of it, but it's the most popular game show in the world. 400 million people watch the show, three times the amount of the Super Bowl. And I was on that show. I was on the finale. I went up against the best in China, former Guinness World Record holder, competing in an event. So yeah, it's pretty massive in China. Mhm. Yeah, they love that. I mean, it's very incentivized in China to accelerate your mind to get to the next level because the school system is very competitive over there, whereas here it's not as much. So a lot of kids, a lot of parents are pushing people into taking themselves to that next level, which is really cool. I was working a boring cubicle job in Denver, and I came across a book. Like, again, I wasn't a very good employee. I'm like Googling stuff, and I came across this article about this book called Moonwalking with Einstein, The Art and Science of Remembering Everything. And that book just grabbed my soul. I went to Barnes and Noble, I bought the book, and I learned like everything about memory and the mind was shattered. Like every belief I had about, oh, if you get older, your memory's worse, or if you believe you have a good memory, you will and you won't. Like all these myths were shattered inside of me. And I learned how to actually utilize the brain to remember things, which by that time I was 27 years old. I had already graduated school, right? So I didn't get to use these techniques with school and all of the practical applications, but I was so fascinated by the capabilities of the mind that I started learning, as anyone would, memorizing a deck of cards. That was literally the first thing I started learning how to do. It took me about 6 days to learn the structure of the system, and then I sat down and memorized 52 cards in order in about 6 minutes. And at that point, I was kind of like, there's something to this. I really want to be good at this. Yeah. I was on a show called Superhuman. Mike Tyson was the host, and so I'm flying out to LA for that show, and I get in this bus, and everyone on the show for like, someone is like has these muscle abilities, someone has like audible abilities, someone's like Sherlock Holmes, and we all are talking, and yeah, we're like the X-Men on this, but we're all ordinary people who learned, to accelerate in our area. So yeah. Yeah, the bread and butter technique for memory athletes is the memory palace. And you probably heard of it. Memory palace or method of loci or Roman room, journey method. It's all basically the same thing. It's utilizing a place you know well. So imagine your house. If you're not at your house, you can sort of either close your eyes or mentally in your mind's eye imagine, oh, there's my door, and I walk in my front door, and then there's the couch, there's the TV. You can sort of see the layout mentally, right? So you use that structure to place things in order. So the cards obviously have an order. A grocery list has a list, maybe an order. A list of words has an order. So you can turn the information into an image, place those images along a path in the house so that the way you remember it in order is you go back to the front door and you see the image at the front door, then you see the image in the couch, and you walk further, you see the image at the TV. You're converting that image back into the information. So that's the bread and butter technique. Yes. Yeah, we remember stories, we remember places, so it's utilizing like the saying in the first place comes from the memory palace. In the first place, the door is the first place. So in the first place, in the second place. It's literally memory technique in that language. I've got hundreds. I've got hundreds. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So every place I've ever been to, every relative, friend, family member, I use those as different locations. I have 20 locations in every memory palace just to keep it structured and organized. But yeah, if I'm in a memory competition, I will pre-choose a list of good memory palaces to use for those events, for cards, for numbers, for any event that I need them. Nobody knows about it, but it would be really cool if the school system taught this, right? Right. Highly practical if utilized in the right way. Yeah. I mean, cards and numbers aren't really that practical, but you can see the application for school, for learning, how this could really transcend us into the another level of schooling and academia. Yep. That's the thing is kids are naturally creative and imaginative in these techniques. So I'm 37 and I am probably as creative and as imaginative as a 7-year old because I've developed and it's not really developed and added that ability. I've just had to peel back layers of conditioning, because as adults, we're taught like, stop daydreaming, stop imagining. It's not productive, be logical, be in your mind. But we sort of decondition kids to utilize a strength. And imagination is a superpower for memory. So yeah, I mean, we need to bring back the right brain and that balance, that harmony of the mind, because cramming and rote obviously works to some extent, but it's highly exhausting and you forget it very quickly. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, the reason I'm able to teach it now is because I was able to overcome it full, right? And so the left brain, I was a type of person who wanted to hack my mind and optimize my mind and utilize all these hacks and little techniques to just optimize thinking and flow and all of that. But ultimately, that conditioned me to have a lot of anxiety, right? To really amplify the control conditioning of my mind, right? So over time, as I'm Even as I'm growing my business, I'm hiring the top mindset coaches in the world. I'm thinking the mind is the answer to everything, which it took me really far, but it started to become a problem. So I was waking up in dread every morning, like a heaviness in my body. I would have heart palpitations. I would wake up trying to train, like 2019, I was training for the World Memory Championships, waking up excited to compete because I was like top 10 in the world at that point. I could have really, done some damage, but I couldn't train because I had severe brain fog. So as I got better and better and more logical and more in my mind, the anxiety and the panic actually amplified. And so I tried all the techniques, right? I started thinking, oh, I'm having brain fog. I need a supplement. I must be deficient in something. I need to go for a walk, clear my mind. And none of those things worked. The meditations didn't work. The therapies, the reframes, all of the things through the mind fell short. Not that they weren't helpful to some extent, but they didn't get to the root of the problem. And so I was like, at one point, like, what is really going on here? Because clearly, the harder I try at this, the worse it gets. So I had to change. And in that change, I was able to realize the real root of panic, anxiety, even depression it's an emotional root issue. It's a suppressed emotional root issue. And so all of the methods these days to go through the mind fall short. They're more of a managing or a coping type of strategy. Whereas I didn't want anything like that. I was like, I don't want to feel this way ever. Like, I don't want to manage it. I don't want to take a pill. I don't want to have to listen to a meditation every day or anything like that. I wanted to go to the root and get rid of this for good. And in that journey, so I started practicing some new things, emotional releases. And within 2 months, like, so 20 years of anxiety, doing the wrong things, and then 2 months of emotional releases, and I didn't have any more panic and I didn't have any more anxiety. So now I want to share that with the world. I want to shout from the rooftops because I'm like, it's like if you discovered the cure to cancer, you would be like shouting from the rooftops, like, hey, listen, you know what I mean? And that's kind of where I'm at now. Is like, I found something so profound that I want to share that with the world because it transformed my life too. One of the biggest, yeah, happy to share. One of the biggest epiphanies for me. So at the end of 2022, so this is all very recent. My grandfather committed suicide. And obviously, like he didn't tell anyone, no, we were completely blindsided 100%. And it devastated us. And one of the typical responses to something like that is extreme sadness, right? Grief. Well, my response was rage. And it is what it is. Like, I was so angry at the time of what he left behind. I saw the family devastated. I saw the repercussions. I felt anger for me because at the time I had so much judgment for someone with suicide. I was like, how could someone do that with their own life? I valued my life so much that I had so much attachment and judgment that rage, anger, extreme was coming up for me. So I went through 2 months of just anger at the world and at him. And finally, one night, I hit my head on the pillow and I decided to have a conversation with my grandpa. And I said, Grandpa, I don't agree with what you did. I don't think I ever will, but I love you. And I meant it 1,000%. And in that moment, Maria, an elephant of rage lifted off my shoulders. It was the most profound moment of my life. I didn't know what happened. It was the energy completely changed. And I said, I tried to get angry. Like, I tried to bring it back to see what happened, and I couldn't. There was nothing I could do could bring back the sizzle. From that moment on to this day, I have not had 1 ounce of anger at him. It was profound. That was the first release, mega release that showed me there's something here, right? So for most of most of the stuff I was holding on to was anger. And believe it or not, anger, sadness can be underneath anxiety and panic. Just because you have anxiety and panic doesn't mean you're just in fear. There could be massive amounts of other emotions under that. Yeah. Yeah. It's powerful to not only lean in and jump on the back of the emotion, like to allow it in, but yeah, the big part, the big epiphany for me and what I teach people is also not just feeling that emotion fully, because it has to. There's no way around it. Otherwise, you're going to bury it. But also recognizing where the attachment is. Because the attachment is like, think of like a balloon, right? The attachment is a string that holds a balloon inside of you. The balloon is that emotion. Once we cut that attachment, we can allow it to move upward and outward. So that was a big realization for me. Yeah, men, it's not, and men have been, yeah, very much desensitized to themselves. And it's unfortunate, but we need to bring this back into the world for men, especially. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, so to distinguish, the left side is more the masculine side, the more the structure and control. The right side is more the feminine side, right? The flow, the creativity, the intuition, the imagination, and you need both. Whether you're a man or a woman listening to this, masculine, feminine doesn't mean man, woman. It means the harmony of energies. And so if someone has anxiety and panic, they're highly, highly left-brained. They're highly, highly masculine, and there's a lot of control there. So with memory or releasing panic, you have to bring in harmony. You have to bring in the right side, which is intuition, which is heart, which is creativity and flow. And the way you do that is with surrender. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. Surrender means allowing whatever is happening to happen inside of you. So, like as men, we're taught one of the examples that I teach people that's counterintuitive is blocking distractions. We're taught to block out distractions, internal and external, to get stuff done. That conditions you for control, for anxiety. So I do the exact opposite, meaning I allow all distractions in, internal distractions, heart racing, mind wandering, thoughts, anxieties. If I have whatever I have, I allow it in and be present with that. And that's a skill that you have to learn to bring in a balance. And it's hard because what we're trained and conditioned to do is push away anything uncomfortable. Any uncomfortable feeling or thought or emotion, we tend to resist very highly. In that resistance, we're creating a lot of force and a lot of energy drain. It's actually very exhausting to push thoughts away, to push internal feelings and suppress them away. So you have to make that flip and allow that in. And when you allow stuff in, not only are you releasing emotion and in your body, but with the memory, you're allowing thoughts to download in, you're allowing creativity to come in, you're allowing your imagination to play. So it's a very beneficial thing for anyone in any field or any lifestyle, right? Because you're allowing things in instead of always using your brain to force yourself to come up with ideas or force yourself to get things done or force yourself to block things out. Mhm. Sure. Well, in fact, it's the opposite. If we push away the feelings, we tend to cope, with we work too much, or we have to listen to shows, or we eat too much, or drink alcohol. Those are all coping mechanisms to mute that energy, to calm that edge, right? We drink to put off the edge. Well, what is the edge? The edge is the stuff coming up to the surface. So, in fact, by pushing it away and continuing what we're doing, it will last forever and it will keep getting louder and it will never end. Like for me, it got to the point where panic attacks are very, very loud, very, very scary because I kept pushing it away. But if you lean in and allow it to happen, of course, there is a letting go, meaning you don't know how long it'll last. But it's the only way. Like, here's what I tell people: we have massive amounts of suppressed emotions inside of us. Every single moment of your life that you didn't handle fully, process fully, that was uncomfortable, is still inside of you right now. And so we want that stuff out and integrated. The only way to let that stuff out is to fully feel and process that out. Well, luckily, your subconscious mind doesn't give you everything at once, doesn't open Pandora's box. It gradually gives you things that you can handle unless you're resisting it, where it gets louder and louder, right? So we have to, and just start with something simple. For those in fear of that, start with something simple. Like the first time you're frustrated, go sit with it. No mental effort, just sit with it and see how long it lasts. And I guarantee you, if you As you learn this muscle of letting go of your attachment, of not resisting it, it'll go away much quicker. It will release much quicker. But it's all the resistance that's holding this stuff in, making it feel like it's never going to end. Yeah. Yeah. But if you're start with the low hanging fruit to learn that illusion, because you won't know until you try it. We've all processed emotions. It's just there are some big ones that we've resisted. So for anyone listening, anytime you feel a negative emotion, not just anxiety or panic or whatever, sit with it, be with it, watch it pass, feel it pass. Like don't even watch it. Don't be in your mind, just feel that stuff. And you get better and better at that. It will release and it will release for good. Mm. Very much. And here's the analogy I give, like, which guys will love. Imagine going to the gym. Like, you talk about trust. How do I know this is going to work? Like, you're thinking, John, I don't trust this yet. I say, and I get asked this all the time. How do I know it, or at least how do I know this will work? And I say, well, how do you know going to the gym is going to work? So, first off, you see people who've gone there and it works, right? But for you, let's say you go your first day and you go home, you're like, did it work? You look in the mirror and you're just red faced and exhausted. You don't notice any muscle definition. The when you start building trust is like 3 weeks in when you start realizing it works. That's when the trust hits. So it's the same thing with emotions is you're going to be doing this. If this is new to you, you're going to be doing this for a couple weeks before you notice any, maybe unless you have an elephant moment like I did, where I mentioned, with my grandpa, you're not going to know it's going to work until you devote yourself. Now you can trust it because you will viscerally feel a change, a lightness, a groundedness in you that you haven't felt before. Yes. Yeah. 100%. If you devote yourself, I mean, it is possible to completely overcome anxiety, depression, panic for good forever if you know what you're doing and allow yourself to feel these things. Mhm. Yeah, it's very possible to have that experience, especially if you've had so much tension and control. That's actually a good thing. I've never had like something that strong. I've had some twitches and some movements and some really big releases, but what that's doing is your body knows what to do, how to heal from this. And so letting go is part of it is not just surrendering control of your mind, but surrendering control of your body in those moments. Like meaning you were fully relax and allow that stuff to happen. So your body has an intelligence. Your body knows how to beat your heart. Your body knows how to breathe. Your body knows how to pump and all of these things. But we get in the way. The human gets in the way. So it's the same thing with anxiety. Our mind gets in the way of everything. This divine intelligence that circulates through our body that can heal it. When you remove yourself, your mind, you can have these visceral twitches and energy moments like I've had. But that's a good thing if you understand what's happening is Your body's healing. That's a good thing. It's letting it out. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. It's 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 its way, the nature. The nature of ourselves is to do that. And so I really want to underline this point that all of us want to heal, but if we're trying to do it through force of the mind or even our body, like we're being taught like working out is good for the mind, like it is, but it's not going to cure your, it's not going to heal your anxiety. It's not going to heal the emotion. The only way, and this is really simple, to heal any of these emotional root issues, like anxiety, panic, depression, is to feel the emotion. That's it. That's it. It's that simple, but that difficult, right? But the body, if our mind gets out of the way, we step out of the way, the human, and our body steps out of the way, we surrender control. In those moments, the intelligence inside of you, the God force, life force, universe, whatever you want to call it, will work through you and heal you. Yeah. Yeah. Once you get out of the way of your mind and you tap more into your heart, like, we are right now, really powerful things come through. So, yes, this awoken me very powerfully spiritually because I believe emotions are the gateway to the spiritual realm, right? The mind is what really gets in the way. Our addiction to our mind can be good. I'm not trying to demonize the mind at all, but it sees things in a lens of duality. But when we see things through our heart, when we heal all of these things and step back from the ego of the mind, we can actually see things in a completely different realm, right? So spiritually, our heart awakens. We can feel things intuitively that we didn't feel before, right? We see things from a divine perspective. This is what I teach people a lot is, and this is nothing new, by the way, right? Because we've been taught unconditional love, but we haven't practiced it. So a divine perspective is a lot of our suffering is caused by judgment. So if I judge you, Mark, for something you said or did or how you are, or I judge a part of myself, right? That it causes pain and suffering. Because again, we're seeing through the mind. But when we see things through the heart and we heal our judgments, like I healed my judgment of my grandfather, I can crack open my heart and my mind to greater perspectives because I am just one perspective viewing the world. So the what I really want to do is open up more perspectives. The way I do that is through healing judgment, through forgiveness, sitting in other people's shoes, like literally imagining I am Mark in his shoes in Colorado, like in his lifestyle, has his background, his childhood, everything. If I can sit in that and see you and feel who you are, not from a judgment, from a curiosity, I can crack open my mind and my heart, and healing occurs too. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'm still learning that and getting intuitive hits on that for me. I believe I did come here to go through the trials I went through. Like my perspective now is every single person chose what they chose. for this life. Like pre-chose some of the big things, not every single moment, right? We have free will and free choice, but so when I'm having panic and anxiety, instead of asking why me, God, right? Which never gets you anywhere, it spirals. If you ask, why did I choose this? Right? And you might not like the answer at first, but why did I choose panic attacks? I chose panic attacks because the only way to learn love and peace, or let's talk peace. The only way to feel peace is to experience chaos, panic. The only way to feel love is to go through betrayal. So if you're sent to earth, if you live on earth and you want to learn how to forgive and be patient, you're going to be given impatience. You're going to be given people around you who are completely rude, impatient, right? You're going to be given betrayals, but that's a gift because without that and transmuting that and our judgment of that, we can't experience the higher states. So anyone listening, like, why did I choose this is a very powerful question. So that's a perspective I have on my life is like, why did I choose extreme panic and anxiety? Because it was an extreme blessing for me because I see the world and experience it in a completely different way. Mhm. Thank you. Yeah, everyone listening has wounds and has their story to become a hero. So yeah, welcome to the club, everybody. It is. Yeah. So very clearly, this is not therapy. This is not techniques through the mind. This is not anything like that. This is a complete process to go to the root, the emotional aspect, the suppressed emotions that are causing this. So for me, I teach in this program, I guide people through because everyone has the ability to do this on their own. You don't need a priest or a therapist or, to do this eventually. Right. So I have 3 steps that I guide people through to release these suppressed emotions. Number one is you have to have a fully regulated nervous system. If you're in anxiety, panic, depression, your nervous system is not regulated, right? It's in sympathetic. It means think of it like a light switch. It's always switched on. It's always tense. You're always doing, you're always thinking, you're always ruminating. You're not relaxing. And that's what really holds these suppressed emotions in is tension, like physical tension, holding it in our nervous system. So we have to learn how to regulate. And I walk people through a very simple process to fully regulate your nervous system where it's relaxed and you're processing these things throughout the day, not just in a 30-minute meditation or a 30-minute session, right? I want you 24/7 to condition yourself to stay relaxed. So that's number one must. Number two is I teach unhooking, which is how do we unhook from negative emotions the moment they're happening? Not later today, not when I have time, but how do you fully allow and feel that emotion so it can release and release for good, process out, so that we're not continually stacking the static and the emotions inside of us and just causing more disharmony. That's the number one thing that therapy falls short on too, is we go have a cathartic release or we dig in therapy for 30 minutes, but then we go back to our lives and we're back in our conditioning of avoiding the uncomfortable. We got to lean into that. As you can hear me say, like the only way out is through. You're going to be feeling some nasty stuff, but that's the only liberation. And then the third part, you heard me talk in the first section about my grandfather, that huge cathartic release of energy, of rage. How do we do that? Because we all have boulders inside of us. So I teach a third aspect, which is catalyst integration, taking a catalyst, a big event in our life, and integrating that energy inside of us to release it for good. Because not only are we releasing this dense, suppressed energy inside of us, but that energy, that's the juice you want to expand in your life. You're not going to overcome limiting beliefs solely through the mind. Think of these suppressed emotions as suppressed potential. Every time you integrate those huge packets of dense energy, those shadow parts of you, those uncomfortable memories of the past, you release them, fully integrate them into your being, and you expand. You naturally expand. You naturally see clearer. You make better decisions intuitively. You balance the mind. And so I guide people through that 3-step process. And within weeks, months, people overcome anxiety, chronic anxiety, eternal anxiety, and panic for good. Yeah. We're so conditioned to use our mind to get to the next level in life and work hard. But to be completely honest, like the mind gets in the way. It's very draining to live in your head and brute force things and enforce outcomes and get stuff done all the time. When you actually let go and tap into this energy, you not only expand, but you're magnetic. Your heart opens because you're an electromagnetic being. Your mind is electrical, your heart is magnetic. So when you optimize both and get rid of all these blockages inside of you, your heart can open up and you're an electromagnetic being. You start attracting things in, you start working easier, you flow easier because ideas just download in every day, right? It's just so much more efficient and optimal than instead of using the human mind to get everything done. Mhm. Yeah. The mind is an ego construct, right? It's the first 7 years of your life, especially, you're like a sponge. You're in a theta brainwave when you're a toddler. and you absorb what your parents say, what society says, the priests, the teachers, and it's not that it's a bad thing, but it forms the construct of your being, meaning your beliefs and everything, how you view the world. Well, it's a flawed structure, and it's the voice in your head, basically. So if we can step back from the mind, realizing it's an ego, it's a construct, it's not good or bad, but if when we stop listening to it all the time and being so addicted to it all the time, right? And we release more of the stuff, like we're guided, we get into it of hits and downloads and we feel our way through life instead of always living in that spiral of the mind, right? Which could be very addicting and intoxicating, but it gets in the way. Meaning, yeah, and not to judge that because I went through that too. When my first daughter was born, so everyone talks about when your daughter's born or your child's born, there's so much joy and your heart's so full and it's so exciting. I didn't experience that because I was so living so far in my head and my heart was so blocked that logically I was excited. This is cool, but I didn't feel that melting of the heart until I released all this stuff, and then you can actually feel this joy overflowing you from your heart. You can actually feel it, not just think about it. So it's profound change because we all have this force of energy moving through us at all times, but it's blocked for most of us, meaning the suppressed emotions like clogging the pipe. When we start releasing this stuff, the energy can flow through us and we feel it. We feel our heart expand, we become electromagnetic, so much more efficient. So the old way is adding things, habits, mind hacks, stacking books, like adding to your life to get success. No, the process is actually the exact opposite. The process to your highest destiny and fulfillment potential is to remove not just the ego construct, but to release all the suppressed emotions that are blocking you from feeling that energy that's guiding you. Mhm. Yeah, I typically work with conscious entrepreneurs and leaders, people who are trying to achieve more in life. And what happens is these people are good people and they've succeeded in a lot of areas of life already, but now they're up against something internal that they can't figure out. There's a resistance, they feel like there's a block. They're starting to wake up and feel like this is taking a lot of energy. Like, and they're hiding it from people that they care about because they're ashamed of it. Like they're a high achiever, and here I am like stuck and not achieving, and something internally feels wrong, like feels like fear and anxiety or dread, where I'm not looking forward to the day. And that's scary, right? So if you're running into that level of pressure, high pressure or resistance, it's an emotional root issue. And all the mindset work, limiting belief work you're doing, motivation, Tony Robbins type of stuff is falling short because it's a deeper issue. And I ran into the same thing, right? So your greatest potential in your next level now is not through your mind, but it's through a deeper release of the suppressed emotions. Yep, 100%. And a lot of us avoid this stuff because it's painful or like we don't want to talk about it, but that's your next level of growth. Like seriously, all the stuff you're holding within. Um, because we we like to feel good. We like to avoid the things that don't make us feel good, and that actually falls short too. I'm not saying you should feel crappy all day, But the things that are feeling like they're bothering you, the things that are not feeling as expansive, a lot of people push them away because nowadays they hear about manifestation and they're like, oh, I'm going to manifest something horrible in my life. So they avoid it. In fact, those suppressed energies are actually attracting the experiences in your life that are poking you, right? So until you lean in and learn how to integrate those experiences, you're going to keep attracting the stuff you don't want. So the way you manifest, like, and I hate this word manifestation, right? Because it's an ego thing to some extent. Like you can also manifest from a divine will, but if you're wanting the car and the house and the stuff and you keep running into roadblocks, right? Pay attention to what you're running into because the way that you transcend and expand upward is not by looking up and jumping up. It's by looking down at all this nastiness that's still inside of you and moving through that, right? So there's the whole, Tony Robbins or Joe Dispenza, which I love both of these guys, but they're forcing through the mind, through coercion, through force, to pump yourself up to a state, to a high. No, it's nothing different than seeking a high in a drug or an experience. There's nothing wrong with that, no judgment. But it's going to snap you back down to your level. The only way to expand beyond your level is not through your mind and pumping yourself up, is to go within to the dark aspects of you that are surfacing and the things that bother you, the people you judge, the resentments, the angers. That's your next level. Naturally. Yes. Yeah. Yep. It's a hot air balloon analogy. People can't light the fire of the hot air balloon without cutting the stuff that's holding it down. The same thing. So pumping yourself up, activating your kundalini, pumping your energy will come crashing down. You have to release the dense energies that are holding you back. Yeah. So I give a free guide for anyone interested, like how to release anxiety for good forever. And I walk through that complete flip of emotional release. And that guide is at releasepanic.com/free. So it's a free video, 12 minutes. You can watch it, join my email list. But the program's at releasepanic.com if you're interested. Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you digging deep and having the real talk that people need to hear. These days, the consciousness is expanding and people need to hear this new information, this knowledge, because we need to go deeper than what we have before to expand.